Hello and welcome to the Green Profit Academy Pros Podcast. This show digs into the challenges in growing a lawn care and landscape business while maximizing your profit. I'm Christine Era.
And I'm Steve Bousquet. We are the green industry experts in profit, growth, and leadership.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's podcast. I'm super excited. We have a special guest on, someone that's making a real impact on the green industry, especially in the lawn care industry. I want to welcome Matt Smith.
Steve, how you doing?
Great. And he's going to share with us a little bit of his background and his story. He was sharing with me before the show. It wasn't real linear how he got to real green, still green.
Yeah.
And so he's going to share that story, how he got to still green. He said it's going to be interesting, and I'm super excited to find out and hear about that.
Well, thank you.
That background.
Thank you again for having me on, and always appreciate getting to catch up with you. My story is a little strange. Started off in the ag industry, after high school. Went to college for a little bit, just didn't end up well for me, but started in the ag industry at a company called Ag Chem Equipment. And during that time frame, was able to work through a couple different parts of the industry, parts, service, and sales, working with farmers, which is a challenge. And most of my family are farmers, so I can say that without getting beat up too bad. But they... the farming industry is, obviously very important, vital part of the country, and what we and how we take care of them is very important. They expect a certain thing, if their sprayer's down or their tractor or whatever's down, it's very, very critical to get that up and going. So coming from the ag industry, customer service has always been part of my core, and how and ultimately how we operate. We just it's just second nature. You don't have to think about it. It's instilled in you, right? So, working on the ag side, taught us a lot of good things. Unfortunately, that company was bought out, and ultimately shut down, which is kind of a story of my life, it seems like. So I had to maneuver, to a different market. And two of my three current coworkers actually left Ag Chem with me when that shut down, and they went to LT Rich Z-Spray. I ended up going up to a whole different industry. I was kind of burnt out and needed a break, so ended up getting into retail sales and spent 13 years ownership. Went from one store, actually grew it up to 3 stores.
Wow.
And ultimately, the retail landscape, in itself kind of exploded, and just had some challenges there. So we ended up growing to 3 locations, but unfortunately had I think 11 competitors move in within my 3 stores, and we couldn't recover from that,
right? And
that was an 11-month period. It wasn't like it was just planned and we could change and adapt. That's why I like listening to these books and things, to see what I could have done differently, if possible. But ultimately, doing the 3 chain store, it was coming to an end, and I got a phone call to actually go work over at LT Rich, which Z-Spray. Ultimately was a godsend. That call was something that changed my life forever, because being able to work back with my coworkers, and Brent and Scott, we worked there 8 years together at Ag Chem. Getting to work with them again was amazing. We actually had a lawn care company together, 3D Lawn Service, during that time.
Wow.
So we literally have done, Scott and Brent and I have been somehow intertwined since '95. It's we don't like each other half the time, but that's fine. But no, we've always kind of stayed in touch during the times that I was doing my retail sales, but always stayed in contact, and being able to work with them for that ultimately that year at LT Rich prior to them being sold out, and 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 hence the reason we're able to start up Steel Green. We've worked together for a year at that location, and 1 year, almost 1 year to the day, is when they announced the buyout. So my luck of starting and stopping was like,
Oh,
who's got it out for me?
wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're working at AgChem.
Yep.
And then you leave there, you go to retail, you start your own business in retail, you grow to 3 stores. All of a sudden, the market discovers some psychographic or demographic showed up in the big box stores algorithm, and they said, this is the place to be.
Yep.
They show up, that forces you to make another decision. You go work at LT Rich, and then a year later, another big box company comes in and says, we're buying that. Wow.
So box store one, at AgChem, it was like, one of the best jobs ever. It just was close to home. We got to, take care of customers. They appreciated what we were doing. We appreciated what they were doing. And that ultimately ended up going away. On the retail side, had that same sort of relationships, right? I'm not dealing with the farming aspect, but it's still, you're dealing with customers, and
right.
It was a neat journey, and I learned a lot from it. Learned a lot of good and bad. But ultimately, it's what helped make better decisions at the current step we're in.
Right.
It's hard to say. Yes, for Steel Green, it's I have a different perspective on things, right?
Oh yeah.
It changes you when you're 40-some years old and you've got 2 kids. You don't want to go back to, what if, and how can you start over yet again? So
right.
A lot of valuable lessons, a lot of life lessons.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point. You got 2 kids. You're a grown up. People are really counting on you. So every decision you make is going to impact not only you, but it's going to impact your family, other people's families.
Yes.
And then you're at LT Rich. They get sold.
Yep.
So then you decided with your partners, okay, we're going to start a new company.
Actually, the crazy part of this story is we weren't expecting or wanting to do anything. I mean, when everything came out, and that it was announced, that was in itself a complete surprise. We were looking for warehouse jobs. I mean, we really had no idea from, my 4 partners in this had been there for 18, 19 plus years. They were the original 1, 2, and 3 employees of LT Rich. So they were, experiencing what I had kind of experienced, unfortunately. And they were really, that craft that they had developed. There's not a lot of those jobs out there that you can say, oh, I was a service manager here, or I was a product specialist. It's not like you can say there's 15 of these manufacturers in Indiana that you're qualified to really, be an important factor of. So, they definitely had a rude awakening. And as we were, looking and searching and seeing what could we do and what jobs were out there, we had, unbeknownst to us, we had someone reach out, to us looking for an opportunity to start up a spreader sprayer company. And this is where the wild part even gets wilder. It didn't take long, I guess 4 months. We incorporated in July, Steel Green Manufacturing, and it was a big leap of faith to do something like this, with people that we really don't know. I mean, we knew Advanced Turf Solutions a little bit, but we really didn't. And they put a lot of trust into us to start. And it wasn't called Steel Green at the beginning. We couldn't even agree with a name of this company. Matter of fact, when we had 15 or 20 different names that we were going through and having meetings and trying to choose one simple thing, we couldn't agree with that. No one wanted Steel Green. That name was the worst name we could think of. Long story short, we had to kind of like just make the decision. After marketing with Advanced Turf, they put a marketing plan together that created that Steel Green logo and image, and we all fell in love with it. But I mean, what a drastic change in learning process to say, Steel Green manufacturing, we hate it. You see the marketing, now it's like, okay, it becomes a piece of you, and now that's you become passionate about the brand, and it's all because of a color scheme and logo that we still kind of chuckle about.
Brought it all together.
That's the importance of marketing and people that know what they, how to do those things and how to do it well.
So what was the name, if you don't mind sharing? What was a couple names that you guys came up with that you liked or something?
Evolution Turf was one, and I think honestly that was it. And then the day that we went to sign paperwork, someone snagged up as a trademark, so we had to bounce. So that would have been it. And looking back, we would have all hated it,
Right.
And oh my gosh, machine names. Here's how bad it was. We almost had a Magnar. Magnar was going to be one of the names because we were so frustrated with all these names and concepts. And Scott Jones apparently had, I think it's a silent warrior is what Magnar in Viking terms or something.
Oh, okay.
Let's call it Magnar. I go, my Lord, what are we doing? So we couldn't agree with anything except the concept and that, hey, our options are limited, right? We want to go work in a warehouses, or do we want to start our company and do it?
Right.
And they had faith in us, Advanced Turf. And then ultimately, very quickly, we had, nothing but, admiration, respect for those guys. And they helped us along the way make some very, very, hard decisions that they've already gone through as a startup 20 years previously. They helped us along the way. And so they're great mentors and partners for us, for sure.
Core Growth Strategies provides business growth management solutions through cloud accounting, bookkeeping, and strategic business consulting programs. Our team works with small businesses in lawn care and landscape and trade industries throughout the U.S. We increase our clients' business acumen by creating business performance transparency through financials and strategic advisement based on industry best practices and benchmarks. Our experienced team provides support, guidance, and coaching, thereby allowing our clients to connect with viable data and discover their own solutions. Core Growth Strategies programs and services are designed to get your business from where it is now to where you have always dreamed it to be. Visit us today at coregrowthstrategies.com and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Don't miss our exclusive limited time podcast special. Just mention promo code GPA Pro to any member of our team during your complimentary consultation, or enter the promo code on our site when you sign up for one of our online programs. That's promo code GPA Pro.
So you have to build or at least move and create a facility to produce these machines, have to design them, get all the steel cutting, the welding, all tire racks, production lines, everything set up.
Most miserable experience that I could think of was first finding a building. Then during this time frame, there's 5 of us that ultimately start Steel Green, and James Kepner, who was an engineer, was our first employee, for Steel Green, and he spent weeks and weeks and weeks over around a state designing, and we'd meet once a week. At the end of the week, we'd meet to kind of review everything he had done, but we wanted him to focus all his time and energy. And so put him up at a hotel, and he was able to work with an engineering team and just knock it out. We had 100 days from the time of our incorporation to GIE of 2018. And those 100 days, you can see the gray in my hair.
No pressure.
that was ultimately the best thing that could have happened. Having that kind of time frame, I mean, that's it. If you're going to launch a product, it has to be at GIE. So we knew we had 100 days to design. I say we, James, the team did a phenomenal job. During that time frame, you're looking for a building. You're looking for racking. You're looking for everything you could possibly, ultimately need to get computers to get started up. And the fortunate part for us during this time frame is we found a building, and it was a nice 13,000 square foot building that would be perfect. The problem is the current company that was in that space, they were leaving, but their new building was being delayed. And so we ended up spending the first, I think, 60 to 70 days upstairs in a 40 by 30 loft. No windows, nothing. It's just a loft. All of us up there, trying not to kill each other. You're designing, you're thinking, you're complaining, you're excited, and you're doing all this stuff. And in a small room like that, it was crazy. So we had to utilize that room for 60, 70 days.
Wow.
And our first machine, I've got pictures of it. At the time, I thought, man, we'll look back on this and laugh. It still brings back pain because you're like, oh my God, every piece of steel, every motor, hydro, everything had to be carried upstairs and sledge. I mean, nothing went together, right? The first design on CAD, it went together pretty well, but they were up there beating on things, trying to get it locked in place, and that's how the first machine went together. It was the craziest thing to see. Made adjustments, cut and built, welded another one up, and finally got it to where we were like, I think we're good. And then looking back again, all that still was going together fairly well, and we had to get tanks designed, and it takes a long time to get tanks designed. All the engineering at that firm, they had to check mark every little thing to say, we can get this production, this mold put together for you. But we have Equip or GIE coming up, and I think I had LASIK eye surgery on a Friday, and you're not supposed to drive or anything, kind of chill out, take it easy. And I think the next day I drove to, oh my God, it was over in the western part of Illinois on the line, Quincy, Illinois, maybe? Yeah. And I couldn't see a damn thing. I was squinting, and everything was like shadows and stars, everything was blinding me. But I had to get that mold. I had to get that mold taken to them, and then picked up and start making tanks. And we were joking that, if this tanks didn't work out, we were going to have the imagine if you would, here's our sprayer with no tanks. Would have been the biggest flop, ever.
Right.
Luckily, the week before GIE, the tanks came in, and I went down and picked up I think 10 of them, just to kind of get machines put on, in place and ready.
Did they start off with the green tanks that you have now? Was that,
we did green and gray. We let the customers choose as kind of a fun little game, hey, take the vote, which you would rather see, gray tanks or green tanks. And luckily the green tanks end up winning as they voted. And
it's pretty sharp looking. Yeah.
Now it's sharp looking. Back then it's like, you don't know. We didn't know. We really had.
Right.
Expectations were it was just a scary time. You're building a product that you think maybe you'll sell. I'm thinking negatively, we're going to sell 50 of these things. I have no idea. I have no idea how the customer base is going to take us in. We had a good idea that people, would appreciate what we're trying to do, but at the end of the day, you don't know. And man,
Right.
it just opened the floodgates after Equip of 18. The entire industry just kind of wrapped their arms around us and welcomed us, and we ultimately tried to pay them back by keep making the machine
Right.
better and doing better and
Yeah.
keep it rolling.
So GIE, you go there, you got your tanks, you got the prototypes, you're taking orders for spring
Yep.
of 2019.
Yes, and
Wow.
I try to take some or put some notes together on this, and it brings back so many feelings that you're like, oh my Lord, how did we do, like you said 41 years ago, how the heck did you start your business? You didn't know any better. You were doing things because you had to
Right.
do them, and that's how we ultimately ended up getting this going. Is we had to make this happen, and here are the
Right.
things that happened. So,
Yeah.
orders start flowing in. We were doing trade show after trade show. After GIE of 18, Brent and I just basically went on the road, and our first, I guess, first sales trip was out east, and that paved the way for us. We between Green Lawn, Save It. There was just some monster accounts that were able to help us, kind of put our stamp on the industry early on, and then trusting
Mhm.
us to do that was, something we could never repay them for. It was,
Oh, yeah.
a-
Yeah.
amazing time.
There's some really solid companies all across America, right?
Yep.
And they definitely want to support, companies that support them. And, even though we still use products from the big box,
Yep.
these huge corps, a lot of the green industry was built up. I grew up in it. When I first started, I was sharing with you, we push spread. There was no
Yep.
other option.
Yep.
There was no, Z spray. There was no steel green. There was no anything.
Nothing.
We were glad to have a push spreader. And there was no, I remember the first Lesco push spreader I had, it was like a Cadillac
Yeah.
push spreader,
Yep.
So, it's just a whole different game. And even like string trimmers, right?
Yep.
When I first started, they didn't have the automatic feed heads, and then they came out with the tap heads and
Yep.
the backpack blowers. I think there was the biggest backpack blower was an Echo. I want to say it was around 40 cc's.
Yeah.
I mean, those were new.
Yep.
When I went to buy
Like
my
a computer
first
fan. It's like a computer
Yeah.
fan on the back, right? You're just
yeah,
making the leaves mad, not even pushing them.
crazy. My first walk behind, I had to bring a picture in from a trade magazine because my dealer didn't even know what I was talking about.
Yeah.
And so it's changed a lot. And the industry, especially with spreader sprayers, I remember when I first started getting into lawn care, production was 120,000 feet a day. That was the national average.
Yep.
And that would be you would push spread a lawn, and then they would either backpack spray. That's how I started, push spread in the backpack, or you would push spread and then you would spot spray weeds out of a tank
Okay.
at a gallon 1,000. And now, the production has doubled at least for, if you're on a spreader sprayer machine, our average, the bottom of our day is 250,000 feet a day.
Yep.
That's the minimum, and you should go up from there. So it's doubled, in the past 35, 40 years,
Yeah.
which is good to see.
Oh, yeah.
And, it's really a matter of you still, there's a process when you get to the property. You have to put the machine on the property, fill it up, do your paperwork. So you can only go so fast.
Yep.
And routing and scheduling is another way, but having these machines, and also having these machines like the steel green machine enables us to pay these people more, and they can make a career out of this.
Yes.
And a living and buy a house and, cars and send their kids to college and stuff because they can get paid well enough to do that. So the machines that you guys are making, has a bigger impact. I know it's like, oh, well, it spreads fertilizer, but really it creates a whole industry that is sustainable.
Right. Yep. No, it's
so big impact.
It's neat to see. I mean, just listening to, your story, Don Zerby, all these guys that started from as a kid, the dream, and then turned it into a reality, and you did it with bare minimum, but you kept asking questions and kept pushing the envelope to where finally people listened and said, well, let's look at something. How can we, make some changes or build something, different to better your company.
Yeah.
It's neat. It's just neat to see how all that comes together.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty interesting. So share with us, like, what's some new things? I know I was at Grow a couple years ago down in Florida. You had a whole bunch of new things going on, dual spraying booms, pressure control. Tell us a little bit about that.
So it really is. It goes back to listening to customer base, right? The dual boom was one of the first things we ever brought out. Jim Beveridge reached out to us and said, hey, can you build something like this? And I'm like, well, I don't know, man. We were trying to get this off the ground. Like, this is like a big deal. If that failed, how would we recover from that? And ultimately, are we going to sell one or two of those a year? Like, who's interested in a dual boom? And kind of joked with him that, yeah, we'll do it, but just not many expectations. And that actually ended up putting us kind of on the map. It proved that we were willing to do things differently from a manufacturing perspective. It's probably not the smartest thing to do is do all these modifications and attachments but it's the best thing. It's like the worst thing we've ever done is create that, but that's what's made us feel great. That's what we do, and we do never want to get away from not listening, at least taking notes and saying, can we do that? Boy, it's not easy, but let's do it anyway. Let's figure it out. And the dual boom was a big thing that helped. Actually, is a big part of our business because it's not easy. So that's that's okay. Right. We'll make that work. You can
think
spray.
You're the only ones offering that, right?
I think so. There might be somebody experimenting with it. I think you got to be clinically crazy to do this stuff. We have got we've sold a machine, a custom SG52 for $28,000. I mean, that was back when machines were $14,000-$15,000, but it had every attachment. It had I forget the brand name now. Drawing a blank. He ultimately it would take him longer to fill the machine up than to spray it. It would do 3.5, 4 gallon per thousand. And I'm drawing a blank on the pump, but that's what he wanted.
Right.
Takes you 4 minutes to fill or 3 minutes to fill, 4 minutes to empty. So,
right. That's what he wanted.
But that's what he wanted. And that's what we made for him. Right. The pressure control system, again, is a simple little controller that is going to keep you from, once you set your pressure to 35 PSI, 40 PSI, you can open and close different control levers, and it's going to keep consistent and stay at that desired pressure. If you want to spray out of your hose wand a certain PSI, you actually can flip that rocker switch down, and it is already preset to whatever you wanted. So if you wanted to have a 50 PSI out of your hose wand, all you have to do is flip those back and forth for that to be utilized. And there's definitely auto rate, GPS, and all that fun stuff that we have a rate control system that it's not something we've really promoted heavily. We've got them out there. We've got GPS units out there that are very expensive, but for golf courses and some of these larger LCOs, they want to be able to track and do all that. We have some offerings on that front. We have more things up our sleeve on the tech side, and we are trying to get to where it's affordable. First of all, there's $15,000 systems out there, and there's $5,000 systems, and we're trying to find that happy median to give the quality also, but make it where it's reasonable for most companies. Not everyone.
So how does the GPS system work on the machine? Like I'm thinking, like we have GPS in our trucks. We plug them into the truck. It lets us know if the truck throws a code. It tracks the truck. It has idle time, hard braking, stuff like that. What is the GPS?
So the GPS side is like what we did in the ag industry back in 95 through 2000. It's literally going to track and ultimately pick up and spray at each nozzle based on where you've been. Okay, so if you go through and do your perimeter around a tee box or a green or out on a commercial property, it's literally changing your rate, and depending on if you've passed over that 3-section part of the boom, for instance, it's going to start shutting off and turning on different nozzles to make sure you're not overspraying. So that's like on the SGXL, that's been more of a focus on that machine. Again, it's so like what you're referring to on the GPS tracker, and that's some things that really there's some neat things coming out from that end as well for the lawn care equipment. Your hours, your maintenance, those are all key indicators that you want to know about, right? And I know there's some companies out there doing that right now that can kind of alert you for your truck. I've got on my truck hard brake. When you said hard braking, definitely get an alert every once in a while on the fleet side that one of my sales reps, may need to slow it down a little bit, or he may have had a braking event, and it'll alert me to that. But on the GPS for the machines anyway, all that technology is getting, again, when it first came out, I forget the cost involved in those, but they were pretty substantial. Now they're starting to kind of get down in where most people can start looking at it.
Right. Yeah, it will be interesting to see, like, even cameras. There was a guy, I wish I could remember his name, nice guy. He was at the tech conference last year, and he's down in Georgia, and his team's wearing body cams.
Okay. I mean, what can prevent, a callback, right? If you've got proof that you were on the property and not ghosting, as they say, there's a lot of that information that, is readily available. And like I said, there's some things we'll have out, hopefully, at Equip, that can kind of, I guess, give us a slight look into the future for what's from Steel Green's perspective. But we, looking at things, what's making it easier for the operator to relay messages back to the owner. If you've got a fleet, like you've got 30 sprayers, how many of those need blah blah blah, like on your truck.
Yeah.
And it's just so important to reduce the training time. I mean, make it easier for the operator. I mean, those are all things that we still hear, that we as Steel Green need to keep looking into crystal ball and saying, here's how we are going to address some of those things, right?
Thanks for listening to the Green Profit Academy Pros Podcast,
the show that digs into the challenges of growing a lawn care and landscape business while maximizing your profit.